What's your name?
You know my name. My name is Rene Salt.
Rene, okay. How old are you?
I'm 75.
75. And how do you feel about me being on this film?
Oh, I'm very pleased that you are on this film because I think you'll learn a lot and you'll always remember it.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to relate all this to your family when you'll have one.
Okay, and Grandpa. And what's your name, Grandpa?
Charles.
Charles. Okay, so Charles, how old are you?
87.
87? Wow.
Not out.
Good. So what do you like doing in your spare time? Soldering?
Soldering, odd jobs.
Good. And how do you feel about me being on this film?
Very pleased. So you have a permanent record.
Thank you, Grandpa. I'm Adrian and I'm 13 3/4 years old. I want to find out about the Holocaust because my grandma is a Holocaust survivor. She'll be taking me and my dad back to Poland and Germany to show us where it all happened.
I remembered it, but I didn't talk about it. I couldn't talk about it for 50 years. It's only after 50 years that we started talking about it.
Why did you never talk about it?
Well, it was too painful.
I think when I was little, my mum didn't talk about it a lot. Therefore, I didn't really know what she'd been through at all, so I didn't even think about asking the questions because I didn't know what she'd even been through. But there were little clues all the way through my childhood that indicated something wasn't quite normal, but I was too young to understand and piece all the bits together.
I've always known that my grandma survived the Holocaust. I've tried to ask her about it, but she just won't answer any of my questions. She never even told Daddy what really happened to her. I really didn't know what it was about. I just knew it was something terrible that 6 million Jews died. I think her family might have got split up, and I think she was the only survivor in her family. I know she was in Poland somewhere, and that's it really. If I don't know now, she's not going to be around forever, and if this is first-hand knowledge, it gives me an insight, and that first-hand knowledge will be passed on to me, and it should be passed on to me. So when I grow up, I'll be able to pass it on.
Some things I told him and some things I didn't tell him. I said, you're too young, I'll tell you when you're a bit older.
Do you feel ready to tell him now?
I think he is ready to hear. So that works the same way, doesn't it?
Hello.
Hi!
How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. My favourite boy.
I want to know what it was actually like the details and what she actually went through, what labour she had to do, like if there was any rumours about her escaping, things like that, any rumours about the Germans, How old was she when she was forced into the camps, and how she was brought into the camps? I mean, did they get a letter like they would today through the post? I mean, it wouldn't be an email. They might have got a letter. Did a Nazi come on the door and drag them away?
There we are, Adrian.
So what do you
eat that, and I'll warm you up a little piece of
Sure. She doesn't like to show her feelings off to that much if she's unhappy. I mean, I've never ever seen her unhappy or sad before, but find it hard to believe because everyone gets sad sometimes. And I think she tries to hide that from my dad and me a lot because we're her children. Before we go on our trip to Poland, Dad is taking me to the Imperial War Museum to see the Holocaust exhibition. Maybe he'll learn something as well.
Yeah, I wonder if Grandma's ever been here. Do you think she has?
Probably not.
No, I don't think she's been here before.
She probably won't want to come.
Well, it'll bring back memories for her, I suppose, but...
Yeah, bad memories.
It'll be the first time I've seen anything about what really happened to Grandma.
This is what it was like, life before the Nazis. So the people looked very happy in those times, didn't they?
Always have family with them, didn't they?
Yeah.
You don't see many like people on their own.
No, I mean, there's probably 3 sisters there, 3 older sisters there.
My childhood was really wonderful. I had myself and my little sister, we were very close, and my mother had all the time for us. She wasn't going out to work in those days, and we had a quite comfortable lifestyle. This is my parents. That's my mother's photo. This is my little sister. I don't know exactly how old she was. She might have been about 5 or 6. That's all I've got. I only got it because someone from abroad sent it back to me. My parents obviously sent them, a few snaps before the war, and they sent them back to me afterwards. And that's all I've got. I wish they would have sent one back of me as well, but I haven't got any of myself, nothing.
No photos of you?
Nothing at
Why?
all. When the Germans came in and took over our place where we used to live, so we just walked out without anything, and just what we stood up in.
That must be all the Jewish books
yeah.
they're burning on the fires. Look.
If Jewish newspapers think they can imitate the National Socialist movement, I'll tell them, beware. One day our patience will end. We'll shut their lying Jewish mouths. Germans, defend yourselves. Don't buy from Jewish shops.
I was just 10 years old when Germany occupied Poland. And before the war, I mean, there was always anti-Semitism in Poland, always.
They had to single themselves out because all the Jews over the age of 12, so you would have had to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
What would I have had to do?
You'd have to wear a white armband
Yeah.
with a blue Star of David across there
Yeah.
to show that you were Jewish, so you stood out. See how they humiliated the Jewish people. Look, it's a rabbi.
Yeah.
And after they cut all his hair off, did what they wanted, they hung him with 8 other Jews. See, they're enjoying it, look, smiling, laughing.
Soon after that, the Germans made a ghetto in Skavola, so which my mother had to go and look for a room in the ghetto part.
This is the sort of ghetto that Grandma would have been in, yeah? So it was a walled-off, fenced-off area where the Jews just couldn't get out of it. They were like imprisoned. That's the one that Grandma was in.
So she would have seen all of this.
Well, she would have seen quite a lot of that going on, yeah.
We thought that was bad till what happened in 1942 in the early hours of one morning in the summer. We were cold, we were woken up with the screams, "Alle Juden raus!" "Oh Jews, get out!" And by then we had the rumors that old people and young children are being slaughtered all over the country.
Some of the things that the Germans used to do to the Jews out of pleasure, and why they were by the railway lines, and it was leading up to something much more terrible than this.
Well, we realized that they were killing people by then. We realized. How they were killing them, we didn't know.
Auschwitz was the largest
death camps. It's the largest death camp.
Look, can you imagine how large that would have been in real life? Well, this is what one of the survivors said, look. As the train stopped, we saw this time that flames were gushing out of a tall chimney. So as they came in, they would have seen flames coming out of one of those buildings, looked at the flames in the darkness. Imagine coming in here at night, no lights, all they could see were the flames coming out. There was an abominable odour floating in the air. What do you think that was?
Burning flesh.
Yes, I thought we're going to be killed there. We never believed that we'll ever come out alive out from Auschwitz.
What do you think?
They don't look human. Just they look like some kind of an animal. They don't look human.
I never thought it'd be anything like this. I mean, I thought, you know, they would kill them, but not in the way they did. I mean, they used to humiliate them. They used to destroy their businesses, and they used to make them pay for it. That it was hard to believe one nation, one race of a people can do that to another kind. You can't call these people human, because they're not. I can never understand exactly how she feels, because these images probably, you know, are probably divided by 1 million compared to what actually happened. And, you know, she actually saw that happening, and, you know, you could die from just seeing that happening. I was really shocked and upset by what I'd seen at the museum. I guess this is why Grandma's never told me about it. But I still want to find out more.
This was such a big tragedy that it's impossible to describe to anyone. I'm sorry I have to tell it to you, but you want to know, so... How did you find the museum?
Well, I found it quite distressing I found out that the people who carried on this train, and they went into the camp, they could smell the burning flesh when they went in. You know, did you experience that when...
Yes, when I got to Auschwitz, yes.
Did you experience any of this?
No, not that, no. I came in at the time of the liberation.
Where were you at the time?
In the army.
You were in the army?
British Army, yes. Preparing for the invasion of Europe.
Oh, so he was in the army?
Yes,
Yeah.
in the British Army.
In the British Army. I only got there...
You see, Grandpa wasn't in Europe at that time.
I was in Europe. I only
he was
got to Europe at the time of the Normandy landing.
So you were brought up in England then?
That's right,
yeah, in England, yes. Yeah.
I didn't really know where you were actually. I thought you might have been in Poland experiencing the same thing, and you met each other there.
No.
Adrian. Grandpa was born in London.
I was in London. But as the armies advanced, we went into Germany, we came across a camp, which we thought was like any other prisoner camp, you see, but they got civilians in it. But when
how did you start to find out what the Germans were doing to the Jews?
Well, when we got to Belsen, Then we saw what was going on. Then it all came out.
People were, held there by the Germans.
It was amazing to think that Grandma was a survivor and Grandpa had been one of the liberators of Belsen concentration camp.
An hour later, that person would have been dead.
But they didn't actually meet until years after the war was over.
Shall we get it down, Adrian, yes? Shall I get you the step ladder?
No.
Because everything was going to come tumbling down, isn't it? Whoops.
Grandma has decided that the time is now right for us to really know what happened. We are going back to Poland and Germany to try and piece it all together.
Hanging around, I just thinking. So what do you want? I mean, you tell me then, because I think it's going to be a great adventure for him. I'm a very open person, and I would probably tell my children, in time, everything that I'd been through. But then everybody's, completely different, aren't they? I mean, for various reasons, Rene hasn't told. It's obviously very incredibly painful. Where do you start? And it's such a horrific thing that I think it's probably difficult for anybody that's been through that.
I think Adrian's going to see a lot of what his grandma went through. And although he's seen a little bit of what went on when we went to the Imperial War Museum, I think when we go to places like Auschwitz, it's really going to hit home. And then Auschwitz
What was in Katowice?
well, it's one of the nearest towns to Auschwitz.
I'm not thinking, because if I'd have to think, I probably wouldn't go. I've got butterflies in my stomach already, so I don't know what it's going to be like, but I'll try to do my best. Did you sleep last night?
No, did you?
Not much.
You all right? Yeah?
Yes,
I like
It's warm, isn't it? Yes,
That's really
yeah. We got food.
This is the first time that Grandma has been back to Poland in 60 years. Can't imagine what she must be feeling right now. I hope she can find where she grew up and tell me what her childhood was really like.
I can't believe that I'm on the Polish earth again. Because
What was it
I
like
never-
when you just came out of the airport? I mean,
I felt very strange. I never believed and I never wanted to come back here. And yet I'm here, and I hope everything will be all right, that we'll be able to manage to do it without being too distressed. But now we're going to Zduńska Wola.
yeah.
We got a 4-hour journey
Is that where
ahead
you
of
were
us.
brought up? Was it?
Yes, I was born there and I lived there. And, it's a long journey.
Kidoshim utorim Kizoar harakia
I think what we're going to do, we're going to follow Grandma to find if she recognises anything.
Yeah, well,
And maybe to go back to her home if she can
Yeah.
find it.
yeah, as this is the street where I used to live, so we might just as well go and see if I can recognize something. Well, I used to live this way, I think. It was this way. You see, you can't recognize a thing. Nothing. Where is
The market square is just down
Just down there. Then it must have been this way. You reckon the cemetery was up there? No, then we would have been this way. I can't recognize anything here. I've got a feeling.
We walked up and down the streets, but Grandma couldn't recognise where she lived. She kept saying that her house was near an orchard. I was beginning to think we'd never find anything.
No, it was like a courtyard where trees grow, not where trees grow, where fruit grows. Orchard at the back.
Should we go over there and have a look?
It could be here, but I can't see the orchard.
Or should we just go a little bit further on?
If it is, we lived somewhere up the top. Who knows, after all these 65 years. Przepraszam pana, ja mieszkałam tutaj jakieś 65 lat temu.
Ile?
65 lat temu.
Jak? Ty?
W 49 roku.
49 roku pani mieszkała?
Tak. Myślę, że to było w tym domu. Bo nie mogę poznać wszystko, bo tutaj był sad.
Był, ja pamiętam. Ogród był.
Tak.
Za niemieckich czasów ogród był, ścieżka była i całe drzewa były, tu ogród był. Tak.
What's he saying?
There was an orchid here, dużo trees.
Pani Lisotka, pani w 49 roku, to kto tu mieszkał?
Ja mieszkałam
Ta pani mieszka. To pani jeszcze pamięta, dziewczynką była?
Pani pamięta getto tutaj?
10 lat
W
miała.
Tyńskiej Woli?
Panią?
Pani,
Nie,
z getto. Pani pamięta?
No pewno, że pamiętam.
Tak?
Tak, pamiętam jak Żydów mordowali, jak Żydzi szli tam tym murem na swój cmentarz i tam ich zabijano. Gdzie ja mieszkałam, to było słychać wszystkie krzyki.
The lady said
krzyki
she lived near the cemetery and she had all the screaming and everything what was going on there.
Bo ja tam niedaleko mieszkałam.
Rozumiem. Tak.
To było coś strasznego dla nas, żeby to przeżyć.
It was terrible, she says, for them to go through. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękuję.
Well, what she said, and they were all very sorry what happened to the Jewish people, and she's upset by the fact that they're saying on the radio that the Polish people didn't help the Jews.
Did she know what was going on though? I mean, she heard the screams, but did she actually know what was going on?
She knew what was going on, yes.
But they couldn't do anything to
They
help.
they couldn't. Because she said they would kill all their families if they would find out that any one of them would help us.
You know, she said that about the
Entertaining.
Polish people didn't help the Jews.
Yeah.
What did you remember of the Polish people when you were growing up? Were they anti-Semitic?
Very. That's what I
So do you think
remember.
she was lying when she said that?
Well, they must have been a few nice people
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But the majority of Polish people were really anti-Semitic. It's very strange to come back here and remember how you played here with all the children who used to live in the block. It's just unbelievable. Yeah, strange, but you know, I'm not really here. I can't believe I'm here. In the early hours of one morning in the summer, we were all told to go to the market. And then they started giving orders through the loudspeakers, the Germans. And then they gave an order that parents should hand over all children up to 18 years of age. Can you imagine how a mother feels? And how the mothers were screaming, crying and screaming, "Almighty God, where are you? Help us." No one helped. And while all this was going on, my mother tried to hide me on one side and my sister on the other side. Well, you couldn't really hide anybody. How are you going to hide anybody? But she covered us over with a coat, hoping for the best. And she asked my mother, "Mommy, are they going to kill us?" And my mother said, "No, darling, they'll take you to the lodge ghetto where your grandmother lives." We knew fully well that all the children that are taken away are going to be killed. From here they took my sister away. And that was the worst moment out of the whole Holocaust. That upset me more than anything else. That happened here. They took her away, I never saw her again.
You can't really draw a picture, I don't think, of it in your mind.
When they had all the children, they told us to stand up. And we were taken to the Jewish cemetery outside the town. They took all old people, invalids, people who didn't look fit for work. It was the first time I had to go through all these selections. Three children got through from the whole town. And just before we left the cemetery, I was spotted by an assessment. He came rushing along and pointing at me, he said, "You, stand up, how old are you?" Of course, I was paralyzed with fright. I couldn't stand up, I couldn't answer. And my father was sitting near me, of course, and he said to him, "She's 18 years old, I know her." And this assessment looked at me very hard, which seemed like an eternity. And then said, "Mag Sie schon sitzen bleiben. She may sit down." And everyone around me was so relieved. Till today, I believe that the Almighty God was holding on to me in that day and wouldn't let them take me away. We were sitting on the gravestones for 2 days and 2 nights. They told us to stand up and line up. They took us out of the cemetery, and there was only about 1,200 people left out of thousands, well over 20,000 people in the ghetto.
It was really difficult to see Grandma so upset. I've never seen her cry before. It must have been really terrible for Grandma to watch her sister being taken away. The marketplace and the cemetery brought back so many bad memories for her. Grandma survived in the ghetto of her hometown for 2 years. After another selection, Grandma and her parents were sent to the ghetto and lodge. They were sent there with other Jews from all over Poland to work as slave labour. This is where she's taking me next.
You don't remember any numbers or anything?
No, I don't remember numbers, but It could have well have been here. Adrian, after we came from Zduńska Wola, 2 weeks later, there was a selection. We had to come down to a courtyard like this. We had to line up, and the SS came along. They had their vehicles somewhere here, maybe here, I don't remember where. And the selection took place here.
So what did they actually do here? They lined you up?
And the SS came along, and they picked out all the old people, children.
But I thought the selection took place in that square that we went to.
In Zduńska Wola? Yeah, but this is Lodz. Here, different people used to live here.
Oh, so lots of selections.
Yeah, there were selections going on all the time, Adrian. There wasn't just one selection.
So what happened? Did they come and knock on your door?
No.
I had no idea that Grandma had lived through so many selections. She told me she saw people suffering every day from starvation and disease, and they were left to die in the streets. I was beginning to realise how lucky she was to have survived.
We go into the cake shop. You see, now it doesn't upset me. But years ago, the aroma of baking bread nearly knocked me over. It was something that we didn't see cakes in the shops in those days. Only baking bread for the rations. Do you fancy something, Adrian? Shall I buy you something? Go on. Go on, pick something else, I'll buy you. Go on. Go on, Adrian. You must be hungry now. Go on, darling. Go on. Go on. Pick.
Daddy might want something.
Go on, Adrian.
Go on.
Go and have a
Choose something. We'll soon have lunch, but go choose something, what you want. Go on. Which one do you fancy?
That one.
Yeah. It's a donut.
Grandma spent nearly 2 years here in the Lodz ghetto. The Germans now had other plans for the Jews and decided to close the ghetto. Everyone was sent to the local railway station. I wonder if Grandma knew where she was going to be sent next.
They told us that we'll be sent away to working camps where conditions will be much better. When the cattle trucks returned empty to take on a new load of people, the station cleaners found little notes in them saying that people are being taken to the concentration camps where mass killing is taking place. But we didn't know to believe it or not to believe it, although we should have done.
Grandma told me that from this railway station, she was sent to Auschwitz with her mother and father. She was 14 years old.
It was dark inside, and there was very little air because the train was so packed with people. There was no room to sit down. You want to go in, Adrian? Come, let's go in. We were standing one next to the other. This is what they were like. No food, no water, no air, and in the dark. And people relieved themselves wherever they were wherever they happened to stand.
How many children were on these trains?
Well, I don't know. As I know from Zduńska Wola to Lodz there was 3 children, but from Lodz to
I should imagine
Auschwitz
probably
there must have been a lot of children.
Yeah. And probably a lot of older people, because that's where they would have sent them if they couldn't work in Lodz.
Yes. They closed the ghetto down and everyone from the ghetto was sent to Auschwitz then. It's just a shiver goes through you. Be careful here. Be careful, Adrian.
Could anyone try to escape if they wanted to? Like maybe dig the floorboards up?
Could you get through those little, slats there? No. And where would you go? There were so many guards all along the train.
If you tried to get off the train, Adrian, they'd probably have shot you anyway.
I was 14, I was just a little bit older than you, a few months older.
I mean, if they wanted to kill, why didn't they just kill all the Jews in the ghetto, in Lodz? Why did they go?
They must have had a reason, I don't know. Perhaps it was more difficult than put them all into the gas chambers.
You all right? Yeah. How are you feeling?
Yeah, fine.
You all right?
This was the part of the journey I was dreading most. Auschwitz. I knew that Grandma was going to find it difficult, as it was the last place she saw her father.
I had a really long journey today from, the station that Grandma went to. But I think Auschwitz will probably be the hardest for her, and maybe for me to see her, in so much, when she's so unhappy like that.
I try not to show him that I'm upset. I didn't want to tell him anything about what happened either. I never told my children what happened. So let's hope everything will be okay tomorrow.
I'm really pleased that I'm here to see what she went through, because she never talked about this in the past. And to me, I knew nothing really about what we've seen. And going through it from start to finish, it's given me a much better understanding of what she's been through. And it's helped me to understand her more.
actually remember getting off the train and...
Yes, I remember. I saw it would have been yesterday. I remember everything. As we jumped off the train, they lined us up in a queue. Guards came in, and they told us we are now here in Auschwitz-Birkenau. We didn't hear about the place before. We didn't know what it is, what it all means. We were lined up, and at the head of the queue, a selection process was going on, conducted by the infamous Dr. Mengele, the butcher of Auschwitz. With a flick of his finger, he just directed one to the right and one to the left. Where he saw people holding on to each other, he would deliberately split them up. That was the place where I last saw my father. I didn't see him anymore.
Did the majority go to the gas chambers?
Yes, most people went there. Unbelievable that it happened. You can't believe it. People can't believe it. By all the people who come here, the school children and visitors. Like a market, it looks like almost like a market.
And there's coachloads of people, aren't there?
Yeah, coachloads of people.
Another coachload coming in. Well, it's better people come than they don't come.
Yes, of course. But you couldn't imagine that, could you?
No.
Now I've seen Auschwitz, I realise why my grandma found it so difficult to talk about. I started this trip with so many questions, and gradually she's telling me her story and I'm beginning to understand what really happened to her. My grandma and her mother amazingly survived Auschwitz as they were sent to work as slave labour in Hamburg, in Germany. It was only because the Nazis thought they were fit enough to work that their lives were saved. Her father was not so lucky. He remained in Auschwitz and was murdered by the Nazis. Tomorrow we're leaving Poland for Germany. Grandma's story doesn't end until we get to Belsen concentration camp in 2 days' time.
After you got out of Auschwitz,
Yes.
were you like more pleased? Did you think that you might not?
Yes, we wanted to get out of Auschwitz. It wasn't good here either, but it was better than Auschwitz.
And did they
of
kill
course.
anyone here?
They didn't actually kill anyone, but people would die from starvation and from disease. You understand?
Yeah.
Now it's very cold and we are wrapped up. And in those days we had nothing much to wear. You more
So do you think it's made you a little bit more overprotective? Do you think?
Yes, it made me very protective towards my own children and to my grandchildren. And I hope to see you one day settled, finish school and have a good job.
Yeah.
And or to have a lot of naches from all the grandchildren. Can you understand?
Yes, I can. Because you never had that yourself.
I never had that myself, no. And I like to see only the good things for my grandchildren. I'm pleased I was able to bring you here.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we'll never come back here again. And you'll remember it
That's
for
right,
the
yeah.
rest of your life, won't you?
Yeah.
I love you. All right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow is the last part of Grandma's story. When the Nazis realised they had lost the war, they began to round up the remaining Jews and send them to Belsen concentration camp. This is where we are going now. I know this is going to be especially difficult for Grandma. It's where her mother died. Grandpa is also going to be joining us. He was one of the few Jewish soldiers with the British Army who liberated Belsen.
Belsen was liberated on the 15th of April, and the word came round, the Allied Army, Second Army, come across a concentration camp, which we thought was like a civilian prison. I said, well, what is there? Well, what's it to do with us? He says, there's thousands and thousands of dead people lying in the road. They're just dropping off like leaves fall off a tree, so people were dropping on for the roadside. We called in the civilian people to help clear the roads, and brought in bulldozers to dig trenches. Imagine digging trenches and the bulldozers coming and pushing thousands of people into...
Thousands?
Yes, literally thousands of people. There was 15,000 dead people found when we went in. What urged you to do something? All these people that are here were Jewish people. Their only crime was they were the wrong religion.
We didn't come here to work. They sent us here just to die because the water supply has been cut off and they didn't send in any food into here. And so many people were laying all over the place, dead. The dead people were laying on top of the living and the living were laying on top of the dead. There was sheer chaos here. And lice, we were covered in them from top to bottom. It was so terrible. It's impossible to describe the situation, what happened here. People were walking aimlessly, some naked and some in rags. So how long could we live? We were already very, very weak by the time we came here. We couldn't last much longer. We gave up all hope of survival. Eventually, I found my mother on a stretcher in one of the huts where she was barely alive. And she said to me that I shouldn't cry when she died. You know? She knew, she realized that she was dying, and I knew myself, I could see she was dying.
It's very hard for you.
After a few days, I walked out of the hut. Some people pointed out a tank in the distance near the gates, and someone said it is a British tank. But I couldn't take it in anymore. My mind was so weakened. I didn't take any more notice because I knew my mother was dying. I knew I can't last much longer. I collapsed there. And when I came to, they were wrapping us up in clean blankets and they put us in clean vehicles and they took us into makeshift hospitals.
Do you think you were going to survive there?
No, I didn't. But when the British Army arrived, they started looking after us, and after a while I gained a little bit of strength, so I thought I might survive. But it was very sad for me because I was with my mother right throughout the war. And here it was 12 days after liberation and she died, and I was all on my own. And I was only 15 years old then, so it was very hard. I had no one at the time.
Back at home again, Grandma is taking me to a Holocaust survivors memorial service. It was incredible to see other survivors and some more grandchildren.
The Holocaust is not history, it is part of us. The purpose of coming together is not just to remember the past, it's to pass over a message to the future, that they will keep alive everything that we stood for and we stand for. As we begin another year, my message is, let the children and the grandchildren take over where we are leaving off.
Come on, all the young children come in the front.
You're taking pictures,
Yes, I'm taking pictures. Are all the survivors and grandchildren here? Who is not here, please raise your hand. Get closer in, would you all get closer in, please? Okay. Let's have cheese, please. Everybody say cheese. Cheese. What a picture.
Before I went on the trip, Grandma never told me much about the Holocaust because she wanted to hide it from me. And after the trip, I realised she didn't want to hide it from me. What she was actually saying is that all those questions that I wanted to ask her couldn't have been answered in a conversation. I actually had to go there to get them answered.
Do you feel closer to her?
Yeah, I do, definitely. Because it's like that secret that she's been trying to tell me has been unlocked.